Okay. So I'll record this and try to see if I can, you can go back and watch it and try to do it on your regular laptop computer. So we're working without a laptop today, so we're going to record this. So hopefully, as I'm going through this, I don't lose you. It'd be easier to have you do this with me so I know where you're getting stuck. But I'm going to try to do my best to do this with you. So first things we're going to do is we're going to download something called Mamp, M-A-M-P, and this is the URL. And when you get there, you'll see several different versions of Mamp. You really just want the Apple one since you're on a Mac. And then when you download that, that'll download. And then when you get to your downloads folder, you'll run the download and it'll install Mamp. And then what happens is when you go to your applications, you'll see the Mamp folder. And then inside here's the app. So what it's doing is it's actually setting up a little server on your computer. So it's turning your computer into a PHP server, basically. And from there, this is where you'll be able to host a local version of WordPress where you can, that we don't have to go like SiteGround or GoDaddy or any of these places and set up WordPress. This is just a way to do it locally. This is also a great way to develop a WordPress theme locally, and then you can just migrate, export it to a real WordPress site, a real one meaning like it's hosted somewhere. So inside this Mamp folder, you'll see a folder called htdocs. And this is where when you spin up Mamp, for example, when I run Mamp and I say, this will actually say start servers. So you'll see this say start service, and basically I'm telling it to run the computer as a server. What's going to happen is it's going to run a localhost on port 8888. And then this is like the home folder of Mamp. So this is running on my local machine here. So what you'll want to do next, once this is good, this just means everything's hooked up, everything is running correctly. The next thing you want to do is go to wordpress.org, not wordpress.com. WordPress.com is where you can actually sign up for a free WordPress site that's on wordpress.com. And normally that's where you get a website like myblog.wordpress.com. WordPress.org is literally the open source organization that works on WordPress, and you can actually download all the source files. So if you go into wordpress.org, you'll see this button says Get WordPress, and then you just download WordPress 5.0.2. And so from there, you download that. And when you download that, you will see a WordPress 5.0.2 zip file. And then when you open that, it'll give you this WordPress folder. And this is the meat and potatoes of WordPress, all these PHP files. Just a few things to point out. You will have WP content is pretty much where all of your theme stuff will live, all your plugins, your images, all that stuff will live here. WP includes has got a lot of other WordPress functionality. WP admin is all of your login information. So when you log into WordPress, your username, your password, all your permissions, all the roles that you have, all that stuff it functions in here. And then the biggest one is WP config, which I'm not seeing here. Here it is. So this is WP config-sample. You'll want to change this to WP config. So we'll do that in a second. Actually, I think when you install it, it'll take care of that for you. So when you go into Mamp, when you go into WordPress, you want to copy this folder. So just do a big copy. And then you go back into your applications where the Mamp folder is. It's weird because all of these guys just have an app, but Mamp is probably one of the only apps you'll see that actually has a folder in your applications folder. So if you go into the Mamp folder under htdocs, you will see this is where you drop your WordPress file. So what ends up happening is if you go to, we'll close all this. So what happens is you can start localhost 8888 / and then you just type in the folder you dropped in, WordPress. And so here's the setup. It's going to walk you through the setup process. So a few things we need. We have the server, but we also need a database. This is where all of your blog posts live. This is where all the comments, everything to do with your theme, all your admin information, it all gets stored into a database. So you have to have a server, you have to have a database, and then obviously the WordPress folder contains a lot of the front end stuff that you see as well. So there's a few steps to get that set up as well. In Mamp, so if I go back to I think there is here it is, PHP info. So this is the database here, the MySQL database. So your host, your port, your user, and your password, this is the main information for your database. And you can change and add all this stuff in your Php Myadmin. This is, again, at the Mamp root URL. So this is on my machine, running on port 8888 under the Mamp folder. This is the main page. This is where you find this. So you click on Php Myadmin, and you get this really ugly database area that you can create. You can actually create a new one. So this is where you would go into databases, you would create a new one, and you would call it whatever you want to call it, like my WordPress or something. You create it, cool, and then there's a few things you'll have to do in my WordPress. It's been a while since I've done this, so forgive me if I'm a little rusty. Privileges. Here we go. So here is the root folder, all the stuff that you need to do here. So what's going to happen is when you set up WordPress, you're going to choose your language, English, and then it's going to tell you you need a database name, a database username, database password, the database host, and then a table prefix. And once you have all that stuff done, what's going to happen is it fills in the database information to configuration file. You can also simply open wp-config sample in a text editor, fill in your information, and save it as wp-config. So like I showed you before, you take off the sample, it becomes the real wp-config, and that's where you would save that information. So just to kind of give you an idea what that looks like, just open this in VS Code. So here's where you put your database name. This is where you put it here in this string. Database user, same here, password, all that stuff. So we could do it here, or I think they'll let you walk through it this way. So whichever one is more comfortable for you, we can try this way first and see what happens. So we can put it here, or we can put it in this file. You can edit it here and just change it from wp-config sample to wp-config. So these are essentially the same thing. So we need to get this information here. So we know the database name is my WordPress. The username, if we go back to our PHP admin. So the username, so the user's having access to my WordPress. We've got root is the main one. So we'll say root. Password. Actually, we don't have access to these passwords, so it's probably better if we add a user account. So we'll say username would be, whatever you want to call it. I'm blanking here. Let's do Divi admin. Host, any host. We'll do local. Password. We'll do something like, I like to use LastPass. Generate a secure password. There we go. Got a nice one right there. I'll copy it, paste it, there. Retype it. Cool. All right, so once you're done, there's a save or go button somewhere.
Go.
Let's go. Yeah, it's very hard to find. All right, cool. Now I have a WP admin at localhost. So let's go ahead and pop that in here. Username is WP admin. And my password, database localhost, table prefix, this is fine. And I'm going to submit this. And it's going to say there's an error because probably can't find it. Make sure it exists. It does exist. Because I just need it. Let's see, database my WordPress. I put all these in correctly, right? Does it have permit? Oh, that's one other thing. Privileges. WP admin, all privileges, yes. Grant. I need it to be an administrator. Go back to go. Try again. Password. Submit. Still doesn't like it. What else am I missing? On some other systems, the name of your database is prefixed with the username, so it would be username WordPress. Could that be the problem? Is that true? Okay. Who else could have done this here? The prefix, I can't remember where to find the prefix. Privileges, teams. Do you remember, Trinity?
For the
Connection with server's been lost. What? Well, now I'm on 8889. Really? Wait, no, that's not right.
So on mine, I have a local WP and then web WP users, and that has my user login in it. I don't see anywhere in which you do that. We can watch the video if you want.
I think I might be missing WordPress. Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote that wrong. It's not WordPress. It's my work. What did I write it as? My WordPress. My WordPress. WP admin. Boom.
Little things.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, Sparky. We made it. Woohoo! Always a typo on my end. All right, we're going to run the installation. It should take care of everything for us. So here we're going to give our site a name. We're just going to call it test WordPress. Now here's where I'm going to create another login. This actually logs me into WordPress itself, where you can go in and change everything. So I'm just going to give this my name, and then I'm going to copy this password before it goes away. So I usually I've got a little thing that shows my clipboard, so I can always keep that there. I'm going to paste this.
Oh, cool.
Right there, just for safekeeping. It's called Unclutter.
Unclutter.
Unclutter. I think it's a paid app, but I love it. You can have access to quick files if you need it. I got a quick little note taking, just pop some notes in here, and then it saves my clipboard. I can see all my clipboard stuff from a long time ago.
Oh, cool.
So if I copied something yesterday, I can probably find it. Yeah, it's nice. And you can clear it, or you can even favorite some of your clipboard stuff. Just a little handy tool there.
Awesome.
And then my email, because it's going to probably email me my information. And then for now, I don't want Google to index my site because it's local. So it's going to say, don't do that right now because it's in development. And then I'm going to install. Okay. I'm going to make sure this is, okay, that's good. All right. It's been installed. Enjoy. And I'm going to log in. So what it's going to do now is going to take me to the WP login. This is how you can tell any site is a WordPress site. If you do /WP login.php, you will see this familiar login screen. So I wrote Stephanie Denny is my thing, and my password was this, which is still my clipboard. Log in and save. Ta-da! Here we are. Now we're in the WordPress site. And if I go to test WordPress, this will actually take me to the front end. So here's what my website looks like now. It's very super basic. From here, you can set up a lot of things. One of the things I like to do at first is go into the settings and go just check to make sure all the general stuff is in there. When you're installing a WordPress site on somewhere like SiteGround or WP Engine or GoDaddy or any of these places, it is critical to change HTTP to HTTPS because the S stands for secure. So it's a secure HTTP connection. And the difference here is if you run it without, your WordPress site is serving up insecure files, which are very easily picked up and hacked. If someone types in a form, like a contact us form or anything like that, that information can be taken away by hackers or anybody listening in on that URL. If someone's trying to make a transaction, like buy something on your website, they have to put in their credit card information. This has to be secure. So most of the time, it's just best practice right now because Google will ding you if you don't have an HTTPS. It'll actually give you that little warning sign that says, this is not secure. I can give you a
HTTPD. What? What was the thing again?
HTTP. So if you see right here, this does not have an HTTPS. And you see how it says not secure. So Google is doing this now on websites. Any website that does not have an HTTPS, it'll say not secure. Whereas
you say it so fast that I don't know which
HTTPS.
letter.
HTTPS.
HTTP.
P.
Oh, HTTP.
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 Okay.
And then add an S.
I'm like, wait, what?
Okay, so for an example, ProGrade Digital is running on an HTTPS for many reasons, but you notice that they have a lock information here. And just a little quick crash course in SSLs. In order to get this, you have to install what's called an Ssl certificate or a secure socket layer. So in SSL, it's now become the norm. It used to be in special cases you would need it, but now you can buy an SSL certificate from many different sites. They cost anywhere from $20 to $150, depending on the type of certificate you need. Most of the time, you can get a certificate called Let's Encrypt, and that's available on SiteGround. And it's usually just a quick push of a button, and it just installs a quick SSL certificate.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's the thing, is you have to get an SSL certificate. And this is not critical for this local host step, But if you are installing something on SiteGround, and I'm just going to mention this now in case you need to reference this later. So if I went to SiteGround, for example, we have a lot of our clients hosted here. If I log in, let's go into, let's do ProGrades. It's kind of buried. But you see that they got a staging site here. So if we go to the cPanel, you scroll down to security, you see this little thing here called Let's Encrypt. Now, in order to get like a bigger SSL certificate, you have to be on a higher paid plan. But if you don't want to go that route, you can do the free one, which is Let's Encrypt. And it's pretty simple. You just say, get the wildcard. Obviously, I already have 2 active ones already. So once these expire, I just say, get them again. They usually expire in a year, just something you have to maintain and keep up to date. But that's it. You install the wildcard once you have the domain set up. And then from there, it's safe for you to go in and say, change this from HTTP to HTTPS. I can't do it now because I don't actually have an SSL installed on my local server. So if I do this, it will cause errors. So just saying that now. Localhost, you don't need the S unless you actually are serving it up. But when you install it on somewhere like SiteGround, you do need it. And this is where you'll change it. So it's under Settings, General. So I'll do that. And then there's a few settings that you can set up here for anyone who wants to become a member of your site, any new user roles. They're going to default to the subscriber role. There's several other ones you can do. Administrator is the top role. You can see everything as an administrator. You have all powers. Editor has less powers. Author, even less, and as it goes down. So if I were to log in as a subscriber, I wouldn't see probably anything in here.
Yeah.
So that's just good to know. If you have more people have access to your WordPress site, you might want to give them a role that's maybe less powerful. We ran into an issue with a client where they were an administrator. We just assumed that they were comfortable using WordPress, and they ended up botching a lot of things and breaking the site. And we had calls late at night saying, oh, something broke, please fix it. So after too many of those, we decided, yeah, we're going to limit your role to something smaller. And so we did that. Not to be mean, but just, you know, you don't want to give someone the keys to, yeah, it was a live site too. So it's not like they were in some kind of sandbox site you couldn't see.
It's like giving keys to a Porsche to someone who can barely drive a truck.
Exactly. And it's expensive. You can change how you want dates to display, time, all the stuff, the basic settings are in here. Under writing, so you've got, when you write a new blog post, the default category can be set to uncategorized, or you can create more categories and say the default will be whatever. Standard post format, all kinds of things you can add here. If you want to submit a blog post through email, this is one way you can set this up here. Most people don't do that, but you never know. You might need it. This one's kind of important, the reading. So when someone goes to your website, how are they going to view the website? So right now, my home page displays all my latest posts. So if I were to go back, where was it at? Not that one. If I were to go back here, so this is the front page of my website, it's going to show my recent posts. And this is a fake one, hello world. So maybe I want my homepage to be something different. I don't want my blog to be my homepage. And this is probably the biggest thing you'll change for all clients, because most clients are going to have a nice homepage. They're going to have the blog maybe on another link somewhere. So I'm going to change my homepage to be a static page. And then I'm going to make my homepage be another page I've created. And then the post page will be something else. So you can leave that blank. You can change this to whatever page you want. When I create more pages in here, you'll see this drop down get bigger. On the blog page, I can show up to 10 posts or more or less. In an article, I can show the full text, or I can show a summary. And again, here's another thing where I already checked this box. Discourage the search engines from indexing the site. So when you do go live, you want to make sure you uncheck this box, because I want Google to crawl the site and I want the site to come up in searches. This is how you kind of get started on the SEO stuff. So right now, just for fun, I'm just going to change the static page to sample page. If I save it and I refresh this, instead of showing the blog post, it's going to show the sample page as my home page. And I didn't change the URL at all. It's still, this is the home where I'm landing. So this is just a very basic WordPress template, really boring. What you want to do next is go explore themes. And you've got a bunch of, here's the out-of-the-box 2019 theme. Wow, it's only 3 days into 2019 and we got a 2019 theme. We got some older ones in here.
2014.
You can add new themes. There's a lot of free ones out there. There's a lot of paid ones. You definitely have your choices and types of themes out there. A lot of these involve, if you need to customize them at all, you'll need to understand PHP, which is why we run into a lot of issues with customizing stuff, because a lot of our clients don't know PHP. They don't want to edit PHP. They don't want to edit any code at all. They just want to be able to drag and drop stuff into place, which is why Divi has been the editor of choice for themes. And not only is it a theme, but it actually is an on-page editor in one. Now, WordPress kind of stepped up their game and added something called Gutenberg. And this is, it's in WordPress 5, it came out, Gutenberg came out as its own like block editor. So WordPress is trying to come up with something where people can edit their own pages with drag and drop kind of a functionality. So the only problem with Gutenberg is it doesn't exactly play nice with Divi, because Divi has its own block builder, and so does Gutenberg. So when you install them, you have to make sure you turn off a few settings. But the first things first, let's get Divi installed, because it's very likely you'll end up using this for clients. All right, so Divi lives at Elegant Themes. And when you go to Elegant Themes, you will log in. The login for our Inventive account lives in Team Password. Do you have access to Team Password? So we would need to give you access to Team Password. So as a team, obviously there's a lot of logins, a lot of places. So we have to share everything on Team Password. So we would give you an account, you sign in, and this is where you'd see the username and password for this. Now I already have this stored, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in. Once you get logged in, you will see the member area, and you will see Divi is probably one of the first ones you'll see. There's a few other builders, and Elegant Themes has a few other tools you can use. You can explore these a little bit later if you want. But we'll go ahead and download Divi. So that's just going to download. We don't need to open up this zip file. You leave it zipped. And then the next thing you'll need to do is go into the account tab, and we're going to get the API key. Because I could literally steal this zip file from it. I could pass it to a friend. They could use it. It has to be attached to an API key, which shows that I actually own the license for this. So under account and under your API key, I'm going to grab this key and copy it. So it's copied to my clipboard there, good to go. I'm going to go back to here, and under Appearance Themes, I'm going to add new, and I'm going to upload, choose a file, and I'm going to use the Divi that I just downloaded. You want to keep it as a zip file. I'm going to say open, it's going to unzip it, it's going to extract it, it's going to install it, do all that stuff when I say install now. Yay, it works. All right, so now I have to activate it. It's one thing to install, you have to always activate too. So now, it's now our new theme. So if I go into Divi, you go up to Updates. This is where you put in your username, which was the same username I logged in to here. And then the API key that I just copied. It's not the password, it's the API key. And then you just say save changes, and then you're good to go.
Ooh.
So here's where you start to have a little bit of fun. You get to upload a logo, you get to play with the navigation, you get to turn on some basic color palettes, a lot of different settings you can turn on and turn off. This is where you can slap in some of your custom CSS. So if you have any special code you want to add later on, this is where that lives. And then another spot where you can add code is in this integration section. So if you're familiar with coding, or if you're not, it's okay. If you're familiar with coding, there's usually a head section of the document, and in that head you're going to put in like some of your script tags, some meta tags, maybe some CSS files. If you have anything custom that's not a plugin, like maybe say you wrote a couple lines of code to make something happen, this is where you probably want to put it. Anything JavaScript related, jQuery will work here. In the body, I don't like putting code in the body, but there are some codes out there that require you to, like Google Analytics, for example. Certain Google tags require you to put code in the body. You can put code at the top of your posts, your blog posts. So say you want like a social media share button or something, this is where you'd put that. This is where you put like maybe a signature at the bottom of your posts. This is kind of where all that stuff lives. All right, so I'm not going to go too deep into a lot of these settings because you would really only use these depending on the client, but I'll just get you started on the next step, which is making a child theme. Now, making a child theme may not make any sense, but here's kind of what happens. If you go, you'll eventually see over time this little update thing have a red icon next to it saying updates are available. And when you go into updates, you will see a list of plugins and a list of themes that need updating. And it's very important to stay on top of the updates. If you don't, over time, if you go too long without updating stuff, things will break. So it's very critical to keep things updated. Now, on the flip side, updating them can also break things too, because there's new code introduced, and sometimes when you introduce new code, that also introduces new bugs. So that can be problematic sometimes. So just keep in mind, maybe today's not a good day to update because we're in the middle of building a bunch of things. Let's maybe wait till things settle down. This is where using something like a sandbox or a development or staging site is awesome, because you can update all you want. If things break, okay, whatever. They break in the sandbox site. They didn't break on the actual live site. So you can check and test everything on a sandbox site. That's awesome. But just letting you know, updates are coming. And so the best practice here is to update and not mess with anything that you've done. So what's going to happen is, remember that code area I showed you? Divi does a good job in protecting that code from getting wiped out. So let's say I have a button on there, that one particular button that I want to change to a green color because maybe it just lives in a certain spot on the site. So I write the code to make that button green. But if I go to update the theme, that green button is going to be gone, because it's going to literally take everything and update it and start over again. So what happens is people like to go into the editor. So if you go under Appearance and Editor, here's where you can see the theme files. And it's going to give you a little notice saying, hey, you're opening up some raw PHP files here, just letting you know, you touch any of this stuff, you could absolutely break your site. So it's even going to suggest that you make a child theme, just as a way to protect yourself from updates. Anything that you do, there'll be a parent theme, and then it'll have a child. So I'm going to say, I understand. So inside Divi, I have access to several files. Now this is a little bit too much. I really don't need all this stuff. WordPress does. I really don't, unless I'm doing some crazy stuff here. So what I'm going to do is I like using something called Divi Cake Child Theme. This is so easy. If you go to the theme generator, all it's doing is creating a child theme of your Divi theme. So it'll protect from any future stuff. So what I'm going to do is just give it a name. What did I name my site? test WordPress. So I'm going to call it test WordPress child. Whatever. Me, I don't have a URL. My parent theme will be Divi. You can actually upload a screenshot. Sometimes that's nice. Not necessary. My email. All right. Build my child theme. Yay. So it's building. Great work. And then it's going to send it to me in email. So if I go to my email, there it is. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to do just like I did the themes again. So go back into themes, add new, upload, choose file, and then you're going to see the your generated Divi child theme template by Divi Cake. It's a really long name. Open that, install, and then activate. So what's cool about this is I have Divi here, and that's the parent, but this is now my active child theme, but I still have access to all of Divi's tools. Everything's like normal. I just now have a child theme. So Divi can update itself all it wants. All of my personal stuff will be saved and will never be wiped out. So this is common practice you want to do for all of your clients, because updates will happen and you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you have to copy and paste all of your edits back over to the site. You will likely forget something, break something. It's just a waste of time. We're billing hours here, so we don't want to be spinning our wheels there. Okay, so let's actually see what our WordPress site looks like now with Divi installed. Yay! So this is the basic, very basic Divi theme. You got the logo on the left, you got the navigation on the right, search bar. This is called a sidebar. So this is like not a full width layout, but this is like a article section and the sidebar. And then you got your footer here at the bottom. So this is very out of the box, super, super basic. So what's fun about this is you can get rolling fast on this stuff. So let's say I'm going to create a home page. So I'm going to go to Pages, Add New, and I'm going to say I want to use the Divi Builder to build my home pages. So here's what's happening. I don't know if you saw that, but Gutenberg was trying to do its thing, and Divi Builder was trying to do its thing. You might get confused of the two. I wish I can go back and show that to you, but you can see it on the video. So you can take a tour. They have a lot of great helpful videos on the Divi website on elegantthemes.com. If you get stuck on something, there's a great forum where people have run into issues and you can find solutions to some of that stuff. They even have intercom or some kind of chat where you can chat with support. So all that stuff is there if you ever get stuck, or just ask one of the engineers who's ever done any WordPress stuff. They can probably help you out on Slack. So I'm just going to say I'm going to start building. So this is the on-page editor, and I can build a page completely from scratch. I can choose a pre-made layout, and this is probably the best time saver, is they have like a library full of really beautiful pre-made layouts that already have a kind of a loose page done for you, and from there you just pop in new pictures, content, that kind of stuff. So if we're trying to crank out a website quickly for a client, this is probably a way to go, a shortcut. Now you can still use your design skills and tweak it and make it nice and pretty, but if you're trying to save time, this is great. Now if you've already made a page and you just want to be able to kind of duplicate that same page because it's a theme, this is where you would clone an existing page. Now, I don't have any made yet, so I'm going to start with choosing a pre-made layout. Now this library is really robust. There's a ton of stuff in here. So you can start with colors that you like, fonts that you like, styles that you like. Some of these are themed based on, like this is a healthcare site. This is a jewelry site. This one's about cryptocurrency. Elementary school, some kind of personal branding, life coach kind of thing, wedding planner, I mean, you name it. It's just got tons and tons of stuff. So let's start with something like a makeup artist. So if you go in here, you've got a sample about page, a blog page, contact, home, landing, portfolio, pricing, like you are set to go. So if you really want to crank out a website quickly, this is a really fun way to do it. So I'm going to start with the home page and use this layout, make this my home page. Now, obviously, that woman in the picture ain't me or whoever I'm doing, so I'm going to have to swap out some images, but it gives you a guide to be like, oh, put an image here. Oh, put a background color here or a button here. So this is fun. I've already started it out. So I'm still in edit mode. If you notice, where it says exit Visual Builder, that means I'm currently in the Visual Builder. And if I hover over stuff, like you can see all these little tools, stuff's kind of highlighting. So what's happening here, just to give you a breakdown of the layout, you have a section. Section is the blue, and it's usually everything defined from the screen width, from side to side and up into a certain point, top to bottom. This little blue section that you see as I hover, that is the padding. So I can actually decrease the padding, I can increase it, just see if my mouse kind of does that there. I can just do that. So it's a really quick way to add some spacing when your client's like, oh, can you add a little bit of spacing or reduce the spacing? Oh yeah, sure, I'll just do that. And then next is this green area, and this is the row. So it goes section, row, and then columns. So this row is a single, it has 2 columns in it. So if I were to go here, you can see I've divided this row into 2 columns. You can do it a full width column, divide it into thirds, you name it. You got lots of options. So I've got a text block. This gray one here is the actual module. So if I go in here, I can actually edit the text. I can change the headings, bold, all that kind of stuff. From here, you can go into the design, and I can say, all right, I want the heading text to be this font, and here's all the different fonts that you can do. This little refresh button will actually change the font to the basic theme font. So there's a theme font that's defined in the whole theme. Like all headings get Lato or some font that's really nice and clean. In this theme that I uploaded, it customized it to Playfair display. Maybe I don't want Playfair display, so maybe I want it to do it to the default. So it changes it for me, but it also changes the look. So maybe I didn't like that. I'm going to just exit out of there and it's going to go back. What if I want to add like a button here? So this is where you would add a new module, because again, this is a column on the left and a column on the right. So if I type in button in the search, here's a button. And I'm going to have it say start today or something silly like that. And obviously I'm going to give it a URL, so I'm maybe going to give it to a different page. And then under here, I can say I want the button to be more centered in this column. I want the text to be light. The button is going to come with its own styles, but if I want to use my own custom styles, you toggle this open, and this is where you can really go to town. You can do background colors. This is the text color. This is the text size. You can do the border width, so I want a really thick border. Change the color. The border radius gives it rounded corners, so you can do like a pill shape versus, a square flat shape. Letter spacing will definitely change that. Font weight, font style. You can add an icon in there. You can choose what kind of icon you want. You can tell the icon to only show up on hover. So if you notice I hover over it, there's the icon. The button icon placement would be on the right. Maybe I want it on the left. Whatever you want to do. You can add text, shadow. There's so many more design elements you can do. And then if all of that is not enough, and sometimes that is the case, you can go into advanced. You can add an ID or a class to this. And this is where you go back to your CSS and write your own CSS. You can even do custom CSS directly on the element, which I'm not a fan of because it's hard to control. If I want to maybe apply this treatment to multiple buttons, it's better to do it in one place than 10 different modules. Because if I ever have to update it, you don't want to go into those 10 different modules, update all those. You'd rather do it from one place. Visibility is a really handy tool, because what if I don't want this button to display on a phone? What if I only want to display on a desktop? So I'm going to disable this on a phone and a tablet, but on desktop it will show. So right now it's showing, but if I were to go, see, here's tablet mode, and then here's phone. Now you can still see it, but it's grayed out. Do you notice the difference there? Like it exists, but it's grayed out. So if I were to actually go back here, see, it's bright white again.
It would be easier to see if we change the color.
Yeah, so another way I can do this, maybe I don't want this entire section to show on mobile. Maybe I have a background image that just doesn't play well on mobile. So instead of doing this, I'm going to go into advanced visibility and disable on phone and tablet. Now I'm going to say okay, but when I go into tablet mode, you can see this is grayed out. So you know it exists because it helps in future editing, but on a tablet it just won't show up, and same for mobile. So this is handy too, so you can kind of see how is this layout doing if I go to a mobile. So as you're kind of building pages, you can say, oh, this does not look good on mobile, let me change this. This is a great way for us to make sure that stuff is not, you don't want to design for just one screen, you want to design for many, many screens. So this is one way for you to check on that. So they make it easy to do that. So I'm going to just put that back. All right. Whenever you're done, you're going to say save draft or publish. I'm just going to publish this. Let's say I've done everything I wanted to do. So now my home page, when I exit the Visual Builder, there. So this is actually page 9-2. Now I don't really like that. So how do I change that? What I'm going to do is go back in here. I did not give this page a title. So I do not like this. Let me go back here. Your Builder, Advanced. You got Classic Editor, I think it is. All right, here we go. So here's the page I made. All right, so I didn't give this page a name. I'm going to call this my home page because I want it to be my home page. I'm going to update it. So now this is going to be WordPress still -9-2, but now I need to go back into my settings and I need to tell it, okay, make this my home page. So remember how we went here before? So I'm going to say, instead of it being sample page, make it my home page, and say save changes. So if I go back to the site, I can see, boom, you go to this is where you land. There's no extra 9-2 or home or anything weird. It's just this is where you land when you land on the home page. So now you've got a site that's already kind of kicked off. It's got some content in it. It's got some decent layout going on and a little footer. So from here, you can open up the visual editor and just start putting in the client's information. Like, what is your phone number? What is your email address? Let me put up in your social links, all that kind of stuff. So we can go a little bit deeper into how to hook up a form, maybe how to change the navigation, all that stuff a little bit later, but I just wanted to give you the idea of how to just set up a quick page, get WordPress installed, all that stuff, just to understand your way around it. And then since this is on your localhost, nobody's seeing this but you. So feel free to poke around. What happens if you look at the comments? What happens if you create a post? What happens when you add pictures? Obviously, when I uploaded that theme, it loaded a bunch of pictures in here. If I click on one, what happens? I can see there's a title in here. I can add a caption. I can do alt text. I can even edit the image. I mean, just start pushing buttons, start poking around, get familiar with where things are, because you'll need to be able to move quickly when we're editing stuff. And then also one more thing under appearance, let's say I want to create an about page. So let's create an about page. And I'm going to be smart and call it about right away. Now it's going to ask me if I want to use the Divi Builder. The answer is yes. Now, once again, I'm doing this on the inside WordPress. I'm not doing this on the page itself. So this is just another way to edit. So I'm going to go back to my saved layouts. Or no, I'm sorry, pre-made layouts. I'm going to go down to the, who are we using?
You're using the
makeup artist. Where was she at? Here she is. Okay. Now be careful mixing different layouts with different ones. You can do it, but be prepared to start trying to make them match and look like each other. So she's got already an about one ready to go. So I'm just going to go with this one. So I'm going to use this one. I'm just going to publish it for now. So this is WordPress-about. So I'm going to go back here. So notice how it's adding my pages already to the navigation. That's handy. But maybe you don't want it in there. Look, I've got home in there twice. I've got the sample page in there and a category that I don't want. This is starting to get a little bit out of hand. So if I click on about, it should take me to the about page, and that's great. But what if I want to edit some of this stuff? So to edit the navigation, that lives under appearance and menus. So under menus, I have no menus created. So what's controlling the menu? That's Divi. Divi's handling that right now. So I would recommend doing your menu in here. It's a little bit more intuitive to WordPress. You're welcome to do it in Divi. I don't find the Divi navigation to be that intuitive, but it does have a few options. So right here, it's asking which pages do I want to exclude from the nav bar, and these are checked. Now this is a little confusing to me. I don't really care for this. So I don't want the category showing. I'm going to take that off. Pages, I don't want home showing. I don't want it showing here. So it's going to remove the two home buttons. If there's a drop down, I want that to show. I don't want sample page to show. And then you can also say how you want the pages to be ordered. So you can do them by ascending or descending, how many tiers. So if I do one tier drop down, then I do a second tier drop down, and a third, you can control that here. So, oh, there it goes. Now I just have the about only, and Divi, of course, will only take me to the home. So that if you click on the logo, that takes you to home. The about takes you to about. The search is nice because it immediately shows up a search box. You type in, it'll take you to the search results page. So that's cool. So that kind of shows you a little bit about what to do there. Now, once you start building multiple pages and you want to start adding stuff to the menu, let's just do one for example. I'm going to add about. Maybe we'll do in the news. This will go under the about. And again, I'm just going to load the layout real quick. This was makeup. This little search sometimes is slow. I do it. Okay, go all the way down. Here we go. Makeup. Let's do contact page. All right, I'll just publish this for fun. Now I don't want it to go WordPress in the news. I actually want this to be a child of about. So where you do that is I want its parent to be the about page. So in the URL, it'll be mysite.com/about/in the news. So that's how I want the URL to read. It's very important to organize your pages this way. So I'm going to tell it parent page will be about, and then I'm going to say update. So now you'll notice this will change. See, now it's now about/in the news. But I also want it to show up in the drop down and menu too. So here's where I'll go into the menu. I'm going to create a new menu, and I'm typically you want to call this main, primary. You might have like 4 or 5 different navigations. There could be one in the footer. There could be one in the sidebar somewhere. So you want to name these according to kind of where they're located. I'm going to call this primary. And in primary, I'm going to include the about and in the news. Notice how in the news is kind of underneath about because it's respecting that parent-child relationship. Now, but when I add them here, it's adding them as 2 separate links on the nav. So watch this. If I say save and I go here, you will probably see, oh, here we go. Having problems with Divi again. Navigation. Okay, I'm going to save that menu. Oh, now they're gone. Oh, it's not putting that in there. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'm going to put this in the primary menu location. That's what I forgot to do. So you see how this WordPress theme has a secondary and footer menu already kind of pre-designated. So I'm going to put primary where the primary menu is designated. Try this again. There we go. So now I got about and in the news, but I want this to go under about. Like when I hover over about, I want there to be a drop down. So this is where I would just simply tuck this in like that. Say save, and then that should do it. Boom. So that's essentially how you build a basic navigation. Now, if you notice, if I go to switch over to mobile version, it changes. It turns into a hamburger menu because you can't have a ton of navigation links in such a small space. So this hamburger menu is very standard practice. You click on it and it will still show everything in the correct tiers, but it just expands it in a different way. So just keep in mind, always be checking whenever you build something out. What does it look like on desktop? What does it look like on mobile? Don't get too far into it before you finally go back and check and you're going, oh gosh, it looks terrible on mobile. I got 20,000 changes to make. Do it as you go. Check early and check often. All right, I think that is the majority of it. Let me touch on one more thing, and I think this will be enough to get you started. You can always go back and watch this video. One handy little trick that we do is, let's say you're building a page from scratch, and you have to build something like this, but you don't have the images to work with. So where do we go? Well, there's a lot of stock image websites, like iStock, for example. They're royalty-free images, meaning you kind of buy them once, you have the license to use them, usually on your site for forever. So I can look for something like, say, makeup. And it's just going to give me all kinds of amazing images. And these are all beautiful and great. But the only problem is, like, say I want to use this one, it costs $12. So, yeah. Stock photography costs money. You can usually do a subscription plan where you get like so many credits, or you can just buy it straight out for $12. Like, I don't want a plan, I just want this one image, $12. But if I get on a plan, maybe I can actually get this image for $6 if I get a subscription. You know, there's always discounts and stuff. What's cool is you can actually save this image as it is, but it will have the watermark on it. So if you want to test it out, put it on your site, see if the client likes it before you buy it, you can do that. But it's just going to have the watermark on there, so you just have to give them that disclaimer. If you don't want to go through all that hassle, say we're working on a site like Mary Lee, they don't have a budget, we're doing it for free, you need to go to Unsplash. Which also has a picture. They have a fantastic, so I'm not sure what you're going to get here, but Unsplash has lots of images for free. They usually ask you to give credit to the photographer, and that's it. You don't have to pay for anything. However, you are limited in your search. So if I were to search for makeup, I may not come up with as many good photos as the iStock photo did, but I've got some good ones to pick from. Like these aren't maybe as professional as that one. These are a little bit more candid. iStock tends to have like the white background, really clean looking images. These are a little bit more photojournalism style. And I love these. These are fun. So definitely spend time browsing through these. So let's say we want to use this one, for example. So what I would do is I would just hit the download button. And here, when I hit the download button, it's just saying it's not required, but we would like for you to credit this photographer. So you can copy this and say, okay, I'll give credit to this photographer. So you go to the file. So here's my image. Now, one thing to be careful of is out of the box, this image is 3.1 megabytes. That's more than the page I want it to load. So do you have Photoshop? I'm assuming you do.
I do.
Okay. So in Photoshop, I have a droplet. I haven't named it, but it's a droplet. And what happens is it kicks off an action in Photoshop to open it, size it down, save it down for web, and then immediately it'll spit it out in this folder with the same name, but just smaller. So if I drop it on this droplet, it's going to open up Photoshop. It's going to process that image. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Boom. There it is.
Cool. That's pretty handy.
So when you have maybe 50 photos you have to edit, I mean, again, time. You just got to save time. I've already programmed this once, and then it just does it for all the images. So now you can see it's at 182 kilobytes, which is awesome. I like the kilobytes. I don't like the megabytes. To take it a step further, sometimes Photoshop still leaves some exogenous metadata stuck in its images. It's got meta tags, things in there that Adobe sometimes just leaves in its files. That can be weeded out too. And another little tool that I use to take it a step further is Imageoptim. This is free. You can download it. I like using this in combination with Photoshop because Photoshop will not only size it down, but you can edit it, of course. So what I do here is I just drag the photo into Imageoptim, and it's going to crunch it even more. So you can see it saved another 50% off my photo right there. So now it dropped it down to 79 kilobytes, which is even better. So image processing is huge with Photoshop because, or I'm sorry, with WordPress, because WordPress gets heavy very fast. You start adding plugins, you start adding features, you start adding more images. Oh my gosh, your page will suddenly take forever to load. And this is problematic because if your client, for example, has a website that's really popular, chances are that people are accessing their website on their mobile. And maybe they're traveling, maybe they're overseas, maybe they're in an area where there's not great reception. And downloading 3, 4, 5, 10 megabytes of one web page can take forever. It eats up a lot of data. And so if someone's on like a really cheap data plan, boom, it's all gone in one website. And it gets expensive. Some people in other countries, majority of the world, in fact, they're not on plans like we have in the US. They're on pay by the minute, pay by the megabyte data plans. So they want a website that loads quick and doesn't eat up a lot of resources.
Yeah.
So this is why performance of a website is very critical. You don't want to skip this step, seriously. Always be thinking every step of the way, if I install this plugin, is this just going to wear down the site more? Can I just do a quick code and see if I can fix it that way? If not, then what are some other ways we can go about this? Try to keep your WordPress as light as possible. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but it's very easy to get WordPress overwhelmed with too much stuff. And the biggest culprit is images. Whenever you run Google page speed tests, it will ding you for images, CSS files, JavaScript files that are too big and too heavy. So your speed score will go down with all of this stuff. And that's something you can always monitor over time. All right, so I got my image crunched down. So over here in this file, you can see it went from 3.1 megabytes down to 79 kilobytes. And when you blow it up, I mean, it's a little bit, I can notice a little bit of pixelation here. It's not too terrible. Obviously this, I mean, I don't really see too much of a difference. This is the 79 kilobyte version. I can see a little bit of pixelation, but right here on some of the areas. That's the risk of crunching these images, is you do lose a little bit of image quality, but honestly, people could care less about image quality when they're eating up their data plan. So you got to watch that. All right, so I got the image done. Now I'm going to upload it. So let's say I want to change this background image to the one I just made. So I'm going to enable the Visual Builder. And one quick tip, one thing when you're designing these pages, these pre-made layouts give you nice ideas of how to build a page from scratch. So if you're like, oh, how did they make this? I wonder, you can go in here, for example, in the background image, they're using a combination of a gradient and an image. I don't know if you can see the difference here. If I take off the gradient, it just kind of makes it a little bit more bold. So, I mean, you can kind of see how they're doing things and maybe copy some of that or adjust it a little bit. So I'm going to trash this and add a background image. And this is where I can take my file and just drop it right in. And say, this is the one I want to use, upload that image, and then there you go. So now that is a basic background image. Now what if I want it to do that cool little scrolling parallax thing? How do I do that? In background, under images, nice little toggle effect called use parallax effect. True parallax uses JavaScript. CSS is just CSS. There's a little bit of a difference, but notice if you scroll over it, the image just kind of stays fixed to the background and it just kind of covers over it as you scroll. The true parallax, if you notice, there's a bit of a shift. Like it doesn't quite stay fixed, but it also kind of moves with the screen. It's a little bit of a visual, trickery going on. So you can play around with that. And obviously, oh no, I can't read this anymore. This background changed and it made the text change. So let me update that. In design, under text, I'm going to scroll down here to where it says text color light. Done. If you still can't read that more, you can maybe add a background color to this, whatever you want to do. So that was a quick little lesson on background images, or just images in general. So I'm going to save and exit that. So in a matter of what, an hour? I mean, I was able to spin up a WordPress site, install Divi, get a couple pages going, get a drop-down going, change out some images. I mean, that was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've done this a few times, so I've got a little bit of a speed advantage. But if you play around with this, you get really comfortable with it. There's a whole lot more to learn as you go into it. But these are the very, very basics to getting stuff started. And from there, it's just a matter of talking to the client, listening to what they need. Ask them, like, what is the goal of your website? And if the goal of your website is to get more donations or to get people to sign up for something or buy a product, you want to make sure you design the site in a way that highlights those things front and center, and helps manage things all around for them. So we can probably cover that a little bit later. So that's basically it. Do you have any thoughts or questions? Anything you want me to review again? I know it's probably a whole lot. So yeah, it just starts off with downloading Mamp, downloading WordPress, going into your PHP admin, setting up a table, and then you just go through the installation process. You upload Divi, and you're rocking and rolling. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this.